Corruption at the highest level, a disgrace. Spying, surveillance, trying for an overthrow. And we caught him. We caught him.
President Trump accusing his opponents of attempting a coup to overturn his victory in the 2016 election. And we're back now with the panel. Well, Karl, I understand the president's outrage. The Russia investigation put a cloud over his presidency for the first 2 years, and apparently there was no collusion. But as a political matter, does it make sense for him to keep hitting the Mueller report as much as he did this past week, or should he move on to other issues?
Well, count me in the move on category. First of all, he's never going to be able to fully move on because the Democrats will not move on. There are going to be investigations conducted by judiciary, by intelligence, by oversight, by financial services. We can watch all of those Democrat chairmen obscure any chance of the Democrats having a positive message coming out of the House for 2020, and he's going to get drawn into that. But let's go back to the economy. The president's doing well on the economy. And not only is he doing well on the economy, but in the new Washington Post ABC poll, 6 out of every 10 independents say, I'm done with the whole impeachment thing. So he's got a chance to use the economy to grab those people who looked, those independents who looked at the Mueller report and concluded the president, no collusion and no effort, no obstruction, and let's go pay attention to things that matter to my family and my community.
Donna, I don't usually ask you to give political advice to Donald Trump, but the fact is, this is an issue that does animate his base, who feel very strongly that this was an attempted coup by the deep state.
Well, since I've spent a lot of time dealing with this issue, not just politically, but emotionally, because I became chair for the second time as a result of the hacking of our democracy. And so my advice to the president is acknowledge what happened. And then begin to...
Well, he said, what do you mean acknowledge what happened? He says it didn't happen.
Acknowledge the Russians, you know, came after our country, and then spend the next 18 months helping to defend our country against future attacks and make sure that this never happens again. The problem with the president is that he can't turn the page because he's caught right in the middle of one of the biggest historical blunders, I think, of all times. And that is a hostile foreign country came after us. And the president's sitting here thinking about himself and not the country.
But wait, what about the argument that it was Obama who failed to defend the country in 2016? He was president, not Donald Trump.
President Obama, of course, went to Mr. Putin during that summit in China and said, stop it. He also imposed sanctions. He imposed sanctions.
Yeah.
He began to, he got the Homeland Security Department.
But it happened on his watch, is my point.
Of course it happened on his watch, because the Russians were hell-bent on attacking our country.
Okay, I want to move on because if the president isn't too interested in moving on, as Karl pointed out, neither are Democrats, who want to keep investigating the president, who indicates he's going to fight every subpoena and take him to court. Here was some of that back and forth this week.
We're fighting all the subpoenas. Look, these aren't like impartial people. The Democrats are trying to win 2020.
It's impossible to hold them accountable if we don't get any information, and he's trampling on the Constitution, no doubt about it.
Congressman Chaffetz, I know you think that House Democrats are playing politics here, but the fact is that at some point, maybe it'll be 21, maybe 25, whenever, there is going to be a president who's a Democrat in the White House. Do you worry at all that by this president refusing every subpoena, every request for a document, every request for a witness, that it's going to do damage to congressional oversight?
Well, I used to chair that committee. I issued dozens of subpoenas against President Obama and his administration. Most were just viewed as suggestions, little to no response. So this is a new phenomenon for the Democrats to take this position. I do think the Democrats, in their quest, this power grab, have overstepped their hands to try to get Don McGahn, the general counsel, and to try to get Stephen Miller,
the White House counsel.
The White House counsel, yes, to try to get them to come before the committee. The president clearly has executive privilege, so they can flail about that, but they're aiming at the wrong targets and they're overshooting their hand, and they know they can't win, but they want the rhetorical point to say, oh, see, we're trying to get these people to come before Congress, and they won't. You know darn well there's no general counsel for a president who's going to testify before Congress.
Do you think that the president's stonewall, though, as he said there, I'm going to fight all the subpoenas, is that him overstepping?
No, because I think the fight that you see within oversight trying to get the security chief to come in, they issued a subpoena, but the White House has signaled that they want him to come in voluntarily. And there's a difference, because if he comes in voluntarily, he can have counsel with him. But the oversight chairman has said, no, you can't come in voluntarily.
No, they apparently have agreed now.
Yeah,
Karl Klein, who was the...
But do you see how we started
Yeah,
this?
right. But Karl, let me just quickly say, Karl Klein, who was the White House personnel director, and Elijah Cummings wants him in there to talk about the security clearances, and they've now agreed he's going to come in voluntarily, testify, and there's going to be a transcribed interview.
And I do think that that is a legitimate role of oversight. But you can see how they first shot, and they started with 2 weeks of stories out there saying, well, they won't respond. And you played a clip from Elijah Cummings. But the reality is they're overshooting their hand. They got to shoot for the right folks. And then there are legitimate things that you can do oversight on.
Where do you come down on this, Juan?
It's so clear. The law is on the Congress's side. Congress, in the Constitution of these United States, is an equal branch of government, and they have oversight responsibilities. I'm sitting next to Congressman Chaffetz, who issued subpoenas and successfully got subpoenas from the U.S. Justice Department under Eric Holder on Fast and Furious. In fact, Holder was...
didn't.
Yes, you did. And later, Holder was held in contempt of Congress for fighting you.
10 years after the fact, Congress still doesn't have those documents.
Stop. But I'm saying that
It's
what you get here is a situation where the president says this is partisan, this is a coup, this is not legitimate, but the law is very clear. Now, he can try and slow walk this and just make it so difficult that they don't get anything before the election cycle kicks in and the like. But essentially what he is doing is undermining our democratic principles.
No, I think there is a legitimate role for oversight, but if you're going to cite Fast and Furious, they still don't have those documents.
Well, I could cite Benghazi, Lois Lerner. How many times? You talk about partisan.
You don't think those were legitimate investigations?
This is much more legitimate. Are you kidding me?
People died in those cases.
No, all I'm saying to you is that was partisan. That's the definition of a partisan attack, and this is not.
Well, to end any discussion of partisanship, let's bring in Karl Rove. No, but I do want to ask you this, because you actually had to deal with these issues inside the White House in Bush 43. What's the right answer here?
Once again, I'm forced to set the record straight that it is an attempt by Juan to establish it. Look, the president's going to win some of these issues. He's going to lose some of these issues. He is going to win it when they have, as Jason pointed out, overreached by trying to get people in the White House staff. But this is all going to be litigated out. And the belief that the president is doing something unconstitutional or anti-democratic by saying, no, I'm not going to respond to these and agree to do all of these. He's got a right to object. And let's resolve this in the courts. Let's lower the temperature. The president is not doing anything unconstitutional. The Congress is not doing anything unconstitutional. But the constant pressure between the two branches is going to be litigated out in court where it belongs.
But when you talk about litigating it out in court, that's going to just push it past.
It may or may not. In all likelihood, these things are going to be resolved quickly one way or the other. Quickly meaning a matter of months, not a matter of years.
But meanwhile, the Attorney General is going up to Capitol Hill this week. Hopefully, Mr. Mueller will go up at some point. That is going to give Congress, I think, enough information for them to figure out if this should go further.
Interestingly enough, Bill Barr, the Attorney General, says he won't testify before House Judiciary because Jerry Nadler is setting ground rules, which we don't quite understand yet. And he says, I'm not going to go talk to them if those are the ground rules.